In this lecture, I'm going to introduce you to the Input tool and the Browse tool. Let's start off with the Input tool. The Input tool is one of the most essential tools in Alteryx. It's used to bring data into an Alteryx workflow from a variety of sources, including Excel spreadsheets, text files, databases, and cloud-based storage devices. The Input tool is also highly customizable, allowing you to configure various data types, delimiters, and field properties. When you connect an input tool to a data source, Alteryx will read the data and represent it as a table within the workflow. From there, you can perform a wide range of data preparation and manipulation tasks, such as filtering, sorting, aggregating, and joining. So as part of the resources of this lecture, there's a CSV file called health_patients. I've saved it to my desktop. Here it is. And I suggest you do the same. So we're going to read this file into our Alteryx workflow. So back in Alteryx, I'm going to locate the Input Data tool. It's in Favorites, but it's also stored in the In/Out category. Here it is. Hold it and drag it into the canvas. When you click on the tool, you can see its configuration options. The first thing we need to do is specify the file path by clicking on Set up a connection. So you can click here. You can then go to Files and then either drag and drop the file into this location or click on Select File. Here's the file for me under my desktop. So select that and click on Open. Now, as you can see from the configuration pane, Alteryx is smart enough to detect that the file format is CSV. When I click on the drop-down, you can see there are lots of options to choose from in terms of the file format. We'll look at a few different file formats in the upcoming lectures. So currently, we have the delimiter as a comma, because this is a comma-separated file. So now, let me show you the actual data file. I'll open it in the text editor by clicking on Open and then open it with Notepad. So as you can see, this file is indeed comma separated. Each record is represented in its own line. So this represents one record, this represents another record, and this represents another record. And each value is separated by a comma, as you can see here. Hence the delimiter is a comma. You can get many different delimiters, such as a tab, which is 4 white spaces, like so, or you can even get the pipe operator, like so. But I'll put it back as comma, and I'll close this file, and I won't save the changes. So back in Alteryx, you can see we have the option to select the delimiter. So right now it's a comma, but you can change that too. You also have this option called Search Subdirectories. This means, relative to the file path that we specify, Alteryx can also search for files of the same name or pattern in subdirectories. I'll demonstrate this option in one of the upcoming lectures. For now, we'll leave this unchecked. Notice we also have field length. This is set to 254. That means that the maximum number of characters per value is 254. So if I change this to something like 1, then the values will get truncated. So over here, we can actually preview our data. If I click on refresh, you can see what the data looks like. So if I change this configuration from 254 to, let's say, 1, notice what happens to the values. We only get the first character of each value because the field length has been limited to 1. So let me change this back to 254, refresh, and as you can see, everything's back to normal. Currently, we're starting data on line 1. If you wanted to skip some lines, just specify that the line you want to start reading from. So if I want to start reading from here, which is the patient with the first name of Ollie, I can start the import on line 6. So refresh, and here's Ollie. But Alteryx has read this record as a header. So if I uncheck first row contains field names and then refresh, you can see this time it doesn't detect the first line as headers. So let me actually change this back. Start data input on line 6 to line 1 again. Refresh, and now you can see patient ID, first name, last name has not been recognized as headers. So we actually do want to check this. And now refresh, and now the first line is read in as a header. You can also configure the tool to ignore certain delimiters. So if you have quotations, single quotes, or you can set it to auto to automatically detect which delimiters it should ignore, then it will ignore these delimiters within the specific values that it reads. So although we can preview the data here, we haven't actually generated any results yet. So let me run the workflow. And now we've got the results here. So if you click away and click back onto this chevron, you can see the results populated here. One other configuration that I want to show you is this one. Output file name as field. It's currently set to no. If you select the dropdown, you can choose file name only or full path. If I choose file name only, let me run the workflow. So what happens now is there should be an additional column right at the end with the file name. And if I change this again, to full path, run the workflow. And now this time, we get the full path of the file. This is useful when you're appending multiple files together, so you can keep track of which record is coming from which file. Okay, so now let me show you the Browse tool. The Browse tool is used to inspect and visualize data within an Alteryx workflow. It allows you to view the contents of a data stream at any point in the workflow, providing a quick and easy way to verify the accuracy of your data and identify any potential issues. So you can locate the Browse tool under Input and Output. Here it is. Let me drag it into the canvas and then create the connection. Now let me run the workflow. So if you click in the Browse tool, you can see the results. On the results pane, you have this green indicator. This shows you that the data is okay. Notice it says 100% next to it. This means that every record has been populated. So if you have any data issues, you'll see it on this indicator. So for example, if you have any null values or anything like that, that will show up on this indicator. Over here, by the configuration, you have a data profile. This profiles each field in your dataset, and it shows you the most common values and the count of each value. It's good to quickly validate your data. So for patient ID, we would expect each patient in the health patient dataset to have a unique identifier. And since we expect each record in this dataset to have a unique patient, we expect the value is 1 for each ID. And you can see it is. If I scroll down, we also have other metrics as well. We have other fields and other values. So in the last feeling field, 166 of the records are populated with the value good, and the rest are either fair or poor. On the last status update and the created date columns, all of the values are the same, which is this date. So the Browse tool is highly recommended to perform some data profiling on your data, and it should be used regularly throughout your workflows. Notice that it doesn't have an output anchor, so you can't connect it to other tools. It can only receive incoming data. This is because it's a tool that's used to inspect and visualize data at any point in the workflow. Great. So that was an introduction to the Input Data tool and the Browse tool in Alteryx.